I bring you greetings from the congregation in Iowa City. So President Franklin Roosevelt didn't enjoy the long receiving lines at the White House. He complained that no one paid any attention to what he said, so one day during a reception he decided to try a little experiment. To each person who passed down the line and shook his hand, the president murmured, "I murdered the vice president this morning." The guests responded with phrases like, "Marvelous, keep up the good work. We're proud of you. God bless you, sir." It was not until the end of the line that he was greeting the ambassador from Bolivia, and he was actually heard. The ambassador leaned over and whispered, "I'm sure he had it coming." So do you think of yourself as a good listener? What it takes to be a good listener may surprise you. So this morning is a bit of a primer on listening. I'm going to begin with telling you a little about my journey of listening. I'm the oldest of 8 children. In my teen years, my parents both worked full-time to support our family, so I took on the role of surrogate parent for my younger brothers and sisters. It's natural to take care of people. And when I went to seminary, it was something of a shock to learn that my job is not to solve people's problems or to give advice as much as I might like to. I learned that my work is to be fully present to others and to put aside my own need to fix things, a tendency to judge others, and the occasional temptation to be drawn into drama. As I was thinking about this sermon, I realized that most, if not all, of what I do as a minister is listen. I listen in a variety of ways. Much of the listening work I do is in pastoral care situations. Now, sometimes when someone comes to me, there's something I can do. I can provide financial assistance in an emergency, or I can make a referral. But mostly, I'm there to meet people where they are and just receive their story. Even if that story is surreal or strikes me as sheer fiction, and there are times I'm thinking, wow. But regardless of that content, what people want is a sacred space where they can be heard and know they are trusted to speak their truth. My pastoral care teachers also taught me is that I don't have to fix things. We already know inside how to solve a problem or deal with a difficult situation or what we want to do. When we really listen to one another, when I listen in a setting like that, we draw someone out. We give them encouragement to name their problem or challenge, find their own inner wisdom, and come to their own conclusions. These are some of the spiritual gifts of listening. There are also different ways to listen. Rachel Remen told us in the first reading, it may mean just sitting with someone in loving silence. You don't have to do anything except simply be there. In the reading, she says, let them cry without offering a tissue. That's a tough one. My first instinct is to reach for the Kleenex box. But I have to stop and remind myself to give them that space to cry, trusting that there will be time to offer a Kleenex and that the tears do bring healing. There's another type of listening known as reflective listening, which is more interactive. As a listener, to reflectively listen means you respond with questions or statements which paraphrase what has been said, indicating you've truly heard them. So, for example, I might have said to President Roosevelt, "So if I've heard you correctly, you killed the vice president this morning." If I want to deepen that conversation, it's not time to call the police yet. I will say maybe, "Tell me more about that." Or ask, "How are you feeling about that?" I'll use open-ended questions to invite the conversation to continue. Now, if I want to shut the conversation down or not take it to a deeper place, yes and no questions will do that. So I'll ask, was it fun? Or perhaps I'll even say, I'm sure he had it coming, while I'm looking for the exit and just praying that the president doesn't want to kill a minister too. My ministerial training and preparation included 2 units of clinical pastoral education, CPE. My first unit was a semester where I spent it visiting patients in a hospital setting, and then I would process those visits with my classmates as we learned together how to minister to people who were dealing with a health crisis or dying. It's exhausting work. By the end of the semester, my colleagues and I, having a little fun over all of this, would turn to each other. We were emotionally and physically exhausted, and we'd ask, "Could you say less about that?" Another way to shut the conversation down. So learning to really listen, although it seems simple, isn't easy. Rachel Remen tells us that this way of listening required a change in her understanding. She says, "It certainly went against everything I had been taught when I was very young. I thought people listened only because they were too timid to speak or didn't know the answer." When we do take time to truly listen to another person and we're not sure what to do, sometimes the context of the conversation will provide clues about whether to offer your presence through silence or to respond with reflective listening. Then on the other side of the coin, you know what it's like when people don't listen. My colleague Bob Johansson says, "We all know when people are really listening to us and when they're not. Sometimes it's the obvious signs. They have their cell phone out and they're texting away, whether on the table or under it, trying to be sneaky about it, nodding as if that will make us think they're listening." Or maybe this has happened. You share a story or an experience with someone, and the first few words have been spoken, and instead of seeing that they're listening, their brains are going, they're rehearsing their own speech, their response, they're thinking about the advice they're going to give you, or they're so lost in their own story that's prompted by what you had to say, and what you get back was, instead of, "Tell me more about that," it's, "You think what happened to you is bad? Well, listen to what happened to me." I like to lean on the wisdom of Frank Tiger, who says, "Be a good listener. Your ears will never get you into trouble." We don't just listen, we have to learn how to listen. One of the best ways to do that is through your spiritual life, taking time for silence. Our first Unitarian Universalist source of spiritual wisdom is direct experience of mystery and wonder. It means listening to the still, small voice within that helps you discover the wisdom, the gifts, the compassion, and the strength that lie within you. We took time to do that this morning. Bob Johansson, my colleague, goes on to say, "Inner wisdom lies deep within each of us, waiting to be discovered, like some buried treasure we've been living with our whole lives, yet never realized. Deep listening calls us to pay attention to our own lives, our bodies, our hearts, our minds." Listening is widespread across religious traditions of time and culture. My colleague, Reverend Gail Seavey, says the ancient Mayans, sought to listen to the vibrations of the sun. The Hindus listen to the gods and goddesses who are vibrating to the cosmic waters that are stirred by the cries of their people. The Sufi mystics listen to others as if everyone was their master, speaking to them cherished last words. Buddhism teaches its followers to be mindful, to be completely present to the moment, which is necessary to truly listen. If we have an active spiritual life and we cultivate the practice of listening to our own inner voice, we're able to more easily listen to one another. From listening to one another more deeply, we'll be able to be in deeper relationship, which is what being a spiritual community is all about. As Unitarian Universalists, listening is how we create covenantal relationship. Our polity, the way we govern ourselves and work together, is grounded in our fifth principle, use of the democratic process. We seek consensus by listening to one another with open hearts and minds as we make decisions, and we vote to determine what our collective wisdom and vision calls us to do in service to our mission. Your mission, to be a place that invites people into a respectful, authentic, and joyful religious community that nurtures meaningful connections, is only realized when you truly listen to one another. And our third UU principle challenges us to accept one another, encourage spiritual growth, which includes greater wholeness and healing. One of the ways we can practice our third principle is by listening. So you heard in the first reading by Rachel Remen, listening is the oldest and perhaps the most powerful tool of healing. It is often through the quality of our listening and not the wisdom of our words that we are able to create the most profound changes in the people around us. When we listen, she says, we offer with our attention an opportunity for wholeness. Our listening creates sanctuary for the homeless parts within the other person, that within them which has been denied, unloved, devalued by themselves and others, that which is hidden. We can help bring out those parts and help a person become more whole and heal the things, the hurts they may be carrying within them. So we know that listening is very healing. Writer Margaret Wheatley, who studies organizational behavior and change, has some ideas about why that's so. She says, I don't know the full answer to that question, but I do know it has something to do with the fact that listening creates relationship. We know from science that nothing in the universe exists as an isolated or independent entity. Everything takes form from relationships, whether it's subatomic particles sharing energy or ecosystems that share food. In the web of life, nothing living lives alone. That's our seventh principle, the interconnected web. So our natural state as living beings is to be together. And in the English language, Wheatley goes on to say, the word for health comes from the same root as the word for whole. We can't be healthy if we're not in relationship. And whole comes from the same root word as holy. Listening moves us closer, she says. It helps us become more whole, more healthy, more holy. You heard in the second reading the words of John Fox about the power of listening to transform the person who is being heard. He wrote, when someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you wrote your first poem begins to glow in your mind's eye. It is as if gold has been discovered. When someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and a beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. Imagine someone listening to you in a way that allows you to feel connected with life again, or more deeply than you felt connected before. Imagine knowing that as you listen with full presence to someone, you are helping them move toward healing and greater wholeness, the capacity to be more fully alive. What a wonderful gift to give each other. That wonderful gift is something to give the world, a simple gift that can make such a difference. Jim Reepson is a former sports writer, and he's now retired as an evangelical minister. He tells about how teenage prostitutes, during interviews in a San Francisco study, were asked, is there anything you needed most and couldn't get? Their unanimous response, including sadness and tears, was this: what I needed most was someone to listen to me, someone who cared enough to listen to me. I wonder whose lives would be different if we had listened to them. I wonder whose lives are better because we listen to them. The choice to listen is ours. Most of us in this room enjoy privilege and comfort, which includes the ability to shut out the suffering all around us and go about our lives deaf to the world's cries for mercy, for compassion, and for love. But if we're serious about Unitarian Universalism and its vision of a world where there is peace and justice, we need to get out in the world and listen. Listen to the black lives crying out for the freedom to live without the fear that a traffic stop will bring death. Listen to the 61 million refugees across the world seeking safety from persecution and violence. Listen to GLBTQ people, especially the youth, who struggle with being accepted for who they are and think suicide will stop the emotional pain. Listen to people we disagree with, especially in matters of politics and religion, with minds open to understanding their perspective. Listen to people, including the person sitting next to you, who may be struggling with addiction, loneliness, fear, or grief. Listen to a world in pain and let your heart break open with love and compassion. I ask you now, Will you go out into the world to truly listen, to offer the gifts of greater healing and wholeness, and help transform the distant land of isolation into a home of belonging for everyone? May it be so. And as a community seeking to transform the world with our love, may we make it so.